Hey guys, this is Illusion Podfic, and today we're going to be reading Red Hood's Greatest Supporters by SFT. The summary is, Random Goon. Hey boss, were you the one to pick that name as an alias? And why this one? Red Hood. I used to have another name before, a long time ago, but that person is dead now. I get to choose for myself now. They can't take that from me. I won't let them. Random Goon. Huh. Random Goon slowly unravels the trans flag. Red Hood. What you got there? Random Goon starts waving it. A smoothie. Or, a loyal goon hilariously misunderstands a few too many conversations and set about supporting his boss the best way he can. Alright, and without further ado, let's just hop right into Chapter 1. Craig Tucker describes himself as a simple man. His tale of woe is as unique as bananas are. That is to say, in Gotham, pretty much the same as anyone in the lower class economy. The only difference being the few spots and curves that define his life. Whatever. Like many others, Craig never finished school, so maybe his analogies ain't the best. Point is, he's simple. He's got a daughter, 7, her name being Gracie. Pretty, he thinks, having named her after her mother's middle name, and a niece from his dead brother, Hannah, turning 16 in April. He's doing his best as a single dad of 2 with nothing going for him to keep the both of them in his school, and both of them are the light of his dingy, smog-ridden life. He's also recently come under the employment of the Red Hood. There's that banana spot that differs him from the bunch. Craig, as a general rule, does his best to avoid working for the big names. The 29-year-old man may be a thug, but he's a thug with morals. He's not touching Penguin or Two-Face or Black Mask, and anytime he sees a clown, he books it the other way. So it had been with extreme anxiety that when Red Hood had apparently busted in, killed and beheaded his boss, he followed his crew's actions of merging into Red Hood's growing group of goons. He couldn't risk leaving his daughter an orphan without anyone caring for her if he disagreed, see? And shit, Red Hood became a big name. But the crime lord is different to most others. No selling drugs to kids, for instance, a role Craig will gladly get behind. No harming, even protecting sometimes, the working girls. His baby mama Melissa would have been proud and smiling. Besides, all that nasty beheading business eventually ran its course. And now Craig might be getting ahead of himself here, but Red Hood is eventually becoming a cool guy to work with. Good pay, better working conditions, actual moralistic action towards people in his situation that don't make him want to drink himself drunk with guilt. Fuck. Craig even gets health care. Red Hood very quickly earns the cheap mug declaring, best boss in the world. And so what if the man, who has to be younger than Craig at this point for all those damned Hamilton musical references, has a vendetta against Batman and his Spurs? Get in line, pal. Though Craig really has to take a step back and reevaluate the situation after some very obsessive rants and a bit too malicious actions get ordered against the most recent Robin, who's maybe running around as Red Robin now? Dunno. Things get confusing when all you're paid to do is try and hit 'em fuckers. Besides, come on. It's obvious the vigilante is a teenager, and Craig hates hurting kids, damn it. Thankfully, once again, that more intense side of the boss tapers down after a few months. So, all in all, if Craig Tucker, the simple man, had to fill in a survey about his workplace conditions and colleagues, he'd give it a solid 4.5 out of 5. Minus 0.5 because of the sheer amount of muttering the guy does about the Bat Clan as a whole. His favorite thing, though, the drinking after a successful night. Because sometimes, if the man is willing and the moon is full, Red Hood himself will come down to the bar and take a swig. Craig has already downed a few beers before Boss came lumbering through the door. Gracie is at a sleepover, so fuck it, I'm gonna enjoy myself. Hey, the man of the hour. Red Hood sweeps a hand in the air as if to say, yes, here I am, and unclips his helmet with a few words and whoosh. That streak of white hair and red domino mask that Craig's still unused to seeing greets him with a smirk. Nah, please, you lot did your part. Craig raises a glass at the acknowledgement, tucked away in one of the booths with his mate Rodney. Another thing he appreciates about the boss, he actually applauds their work. The Hood stalks over to the bartender, the woman already waiting for him with the pint, and slips a wad of cash that likely pays enough for their entire group, and a nice tip. See? Swell guy. Craig turns to Rodney when the commotion settles down, interested to hear the rest of the story. The bar is animated, a cheery ambiance filled with the crew. It's a Thursday night after all, their boss, and the boss made a point to get chummy with the most visited establishments. Man, Rodney groaned, slamming his glass onto the table, beer dripping from his mustache from how he chugged it. I need to hit the can before I piss myself. Laughing, Craig pushes him out of the booth. Get out of here with those details, Rodney grumbles, waving him off and staggering to the bathroom. And wash your hands, he calls after the man. A body slides into the opposing booth seat, and the chink of a glass against wood is heard. Excellent advice there, Tucker. Craig freezes, like he can physically feel his body just halt. Breathing? Non-existent. Heartbeat? Stopped entirely. Brain? Brain.exe not responding. Because even without a modulator, he could recognize that jaw of Allie and that touch of Bristol from anywhere. The Red Hood tilts his head, a curious smirk tugging at the man's boys. That's a boy, isn't it? Shit, he's younger up close. Mouth, the longer Craig gapes, like a fish, he's sure. He knows my name. May I sit? He finally finds his words. Course, boss. Go ahead, Craig croaks, nodding uselessly. Redhead seems to find him amusing at least. When Rodney comes back, fresh beer in hand, he's mid-flicking the soapy water that's proof of his developing hygiene when he, too, stops dead when he sees that their boss had chosen to sit in their booth. Man can't even leave. His shit's right here. Too obvious. Hesitatingly, Craig's freckled friend lowers himself into his seat, and after sending a wide-eyed look to Craig, he jerks a nod to the crime lord. But, boss? Redhead flicks a wave. Right, He drinks half his drink and turns to Craig with a desperate look, screaming, Oh God, please start talking, I can't. How do you say your name is going then, Brent? A light appears in his friend's eyes, and Craig has to bite back a groan. Jeez, why did he have to pick this topic, of all the ones? Animatedly, Rodney starts gesturing sickeningly dopey smiles stretching across his features. Oh, she's lovely, Tuck. The perfect woman. You know them tricks the working nuns have? She can do all of them and cook. Cook, Craig! And she likes the name I picked from a dog, so obviously she's the one. Whistling, Craig swallows his drink, settling back into the spongy back of the booth seat, relaxing when it appears that the redhead is content with simply sipping at his own beer and watching his crew. Well, anyone who can appreciate the name Gertrude in this day and age must be a keeper. Exactly! Beer eventually turns into whiskey, which eventually turns into shots, and someone turns the football on. And Craig is happy. He's actually happy. He's content with his life, no matter the hardships that continue to stay, and he's watching how Rodney sits on the bar. The bartending lassie watches with amusement in her eyes, and begins to opera sing the song of whatever football team's playing. The clock on the wall ticks and ticks until the hands begin to breach into the early morning. It must be the light atmosphere of the air, how everyone's laughing, and maybe just the booze. But Craig's eyes fall on the red helmet resting on the table, bright red and menacing, his symbol of hope. Hey, boss, Craig slurs out, capturing the other's attention. He hiccups, and before he can think better, he asks the question that had been burning in the back of his mind since his employment. Were you the one to pick that name as a alias? And why this one? Red Hood's eyes lock onto him, or at least Craig assumes so, because it's only the white lenses of his mask that he can look at. The man tenses, leathered shoulders hiccup almost imperceptibly. Of course, Craig has a teenage charge, a girl one, and so he can read the brewing tension in the attitude that clearly says, I don't want to talk about this, fuck off. But, as he always seems to do, Red Hood surprises him. Maybe the other had too much to drink also. I used to have another name before. His boss, who really looks so young now, and this moment starts. Scarred up hands swirling the contents, the dregs of his beverage, and finally that intimidating gaze of the domino leaves him. Drops down to something Craig can't see. A long time ago. But that person is dead now. His grip on the glass tightens, and an ugly, ugly scowl mars Red Hood's face. I get to choose for myself now, he bites out. They can't take that from me. Craig watches, his previously joyful mood dissipating. His gaze tracks the way his boss's bare hand clenches and unclenches. Suddenly, the crowded bar sounds muted, like the world only consists of Craig Tucker and the Red Hood. I won't let them, Red Hood finishes darkly. Huh, is all he can say. It takes a second for the words to really hit him, but when it does, Craig understands it all. Hannah has talked to him about this before, multiple times. She'd sat him down and explained everything, and Craig had been fascinated at how the world changed and allowed such expression of oneself to come about. There's not even one thought put into his actions before he's doing them. Craig leans over and pats his boss's wrist as far as he can get, and the crime lord starts. Like he'd gotten so lost in himself that he'd forgotten Craig was there. Craig doesn't mind. He just tries to, as he sways, a bit too tipsy for the severity of the moment, convey as much as he can that, I've got your back, dude. I 100% support you, boss. You are who you are because that's who you are. Craig nods genuinely, deeply, to show how much he really means that. This changes nothing for him, except it's just another tick on how Red Hood might just be the one of the best bosses he's ever had. Hannah would love to hear this. His boss seems lost for words, but that's okay. Craig understands. He's an empath. Shh, I'm proud of you. Thud. Out cold. Craig's form slumps over, and the coolness of the wood against his cheek greets him kindly. A string of drool seeps from his mouth, running off his scruff, and a quiet little snore sounds from him. Red Hood blinks. He stares. He uses a finger to prod against his goon. Nothing. What an odd bloke, he thinks before downing his drink and getting up for another. Fucking condiment king. Fucking ketchup. Fucking mustard, Craig quietly seethes. They have a changing room in their building that technically serves as their base, and he'd never been more grateful for the showers. He scowls down onto the tiles, watching red mixed with that putrid yellow of mustard. The water does a fine enough job of washing that away, but the stench. Oh, the stench. Craig sends a quick prayer to God that he won't have to go home and get bullied by his girls from getting one-upped by the condiment king. He's not the only one upset and grumbling, and the showers are full of half-naked, tatted men cursing about whatever condiment they got vivaciously attacked by. Mechanically, he tugs off his shirt, for he had always did any time before hopping in, and wrings it out. He watches with a morbid kind of fixation as yellowy orange drips down and sludges onto the floor. What the fuck is his life? Say, boss, why do you never take off your shirt in front of us? Craig's eyes snap open and dart around until he finds the idiot who asked that question. He's not the only one, and suddenly the chamber is quiet. Fucking Steve. Red Hood doesn't show any visible discomfort, but he does not look pleased with the question. Half the goons hold their breath, and Craig finds himself to be one of them. It doesn't look like their boss is going to answer the question, which is fine. It was a stupid fucking question. And Craig, out of respect and awkwardness, averts his eyes. Then Red Hood speaks, rough and blunt. Craig's attention is rapt. I have a really fucked up scar on my chest. Almost unconsciously, his hands go to his chest and grasps the soaking wet undershirt he had indeed not taken off. I don't like showing it to others. Of course, Craig knows why. He's on the same wavelength as Red Hood, you see. He knows. Hannah explained everything in depth before she brought her friend over. A blonde girl with too wide a jaw, too wide shoulders. Don't sweat, boss. We don't care, he calls out, and ignoring the looks he gets. We only care about you for you after all. Craig finishes proudly. He sees some faces dawn with realization, and he sends meaningful looks and eyebrow wiggles to those who don't get it. Eventually, out of the 12 of them, sans the boss, they've all been brought onto the same wavelength. They get it too. Yeah, boss, you're still the shit, Rodney jokes. A round of agreements from the others. Red Hood just makes a confused sound, a little choked if he had to guess, and Craig has to hold back from cooing. Aw, shucks. Boss thought we wouldn't accept him. But can't he see that he's a better man than most of us put together? A plan began to form, and Craig smiles down as he starts to wash himself with soap. He's gotta talk to Hannah. It's in pure Gotham fashion that before Craig can even have a sit-down, Bloody Scarecrow decides it's a wonderful day to attack not just the Batman and his birds, but everyone. Sarah screaming bloody murder was the first sign that something was wrong. Her turning her gun onto them is the other. Craig is uncomfortable enough to admit that Sarah had balls, tough as shit, never complains, and just does the work. She's still not as strong as him or the others, but she knows, and it's clear that she works harder than anyone to keep up. So, to see the blood drop from her dark-skinned face, to have to dodge the stray bullets from the usually calm gunwoman, yeah, something is wrong. Close up ranks, Bark said. Don't let her escape, she might hurt herself, or other people, and get that gun off of her. Nodding, Craig and John, as the biggest blokes there, ran to the mouth of the alley they were working out of and readied themselves. They needn't have worried, though, because Mitchell managed to whack the back of her head with the metal pipe and kicks the gun along the grimy pavement. The woman crumbles to the ground, shaking, sobbing even when unconscious. Her nails relax from digging into her throat, though, so Craig will take that as a win. The goons watch as their boss kneels down and checks their pulse. It's too fast, mutters Red Hood, standing up to look at her jerking form. And that looks like a hell of a lot of fear gas. A muttering breaks out, and Craig shares an uneasy look with John. Nobody likes fear gas. But nobody's here to gas her, Craig calls out, confused and wary. Her eyes flick to every crevice of the alleyway. They'd already done a thorough check to ensure that it'd be safe enough to work in. So he looks up at the rooftops. A figure ducks away from the roof's ledge. There! Redhead had already seen the same, so when the others craned their necks to where Craig was pointing, the man had already begun to scale the building. It leaves the alley full of goons quiet, tense. Sarah's body twitches, and she whimpers quietly. Conscious of the way everybody's eyes follow his movements, Craig hesitantly makes his way over to Sarah. She looks so young. One of the first wave of women, as Ronnie likes to call it, to join the Red Hood gang. She couldn't be more than 19, a real rookie. He pulls off his jacket and wraps it around her as best he can. They wait for the boss's return. And then a body drops from the sky, and cue the high-pitched screams from a few of those grown, grizzled men. Red Hood drops down. He's a sniveling thing, the man Hood has captured, fallen onto his ass and already trying to scramble away. Though Craig sees no point, as a wall of goons would be the only thing to greet him. Still, Craig has room for pity. And so it's a mixture of sympathy and disgust that he watches the man swivel his head around for an exit, eyes darting around wildly, looking like a cornered, wounded animal. Red Hood's boot pins the man's foot onto the ground. The lanky thing tugs, but it's useless, and he knows that, so the unknown gives up. What's your name? It ain't a question. There's only an answering whimper. His boss groans, rolling his head to crack it, and draws out his gun. This gun has silver accents, so Craig knows it's filled with rubber bullets, but this fella don't. Red Hood clicks the safety off. Okay. The man holds his hands up, shaking. My name is Austin Creeves. And what in the ever-loving fuck? Boss hisses. Are you doing going around and bombing my men with fear gas, huh? Answer me. The barrel of the gun presses against the sweaty forehead of the shaking man, Austin. I have to, Creeves quails. His hands are up, as if that'd protect him. He'll use it on me if I don't. I'm sorry, I didn't know it was you, Mr. Red Hood, sir. I wouldn't have. Yes, you would have, contradicts Boss, the man's modulator warping his voice just so that it sounds demonic enough to send a shiver down your spine. Or is that just Crick? Nah, Creeves looks like he's about to piss himself. He drags his gun softly down the sniveling man's face until it rests underneath his chin. The gun tilts his head up to look directly into Hood's mask. But that's okay, you hear me? I get it. Under pressure and all that, right? Creeves, unsure if this sudden change of tone is fake or not, hesitantly nods. Because you know why? The crime lord whispers. Creeves jerks, but his foot is still pinned. You're going to tell me every damn detail you can remember, like why I'm a target, why my men are a target, and what kind of gas that was, because I know it ain't that standard shit. And I know you aren't interested in these drugs we got here. He gestures to crates full of the goods they'd been packing and counting, waiting for their transport to show up. Because if you don't, the crime lord threatens slowly, reaching over to grab the man's collar and drawing him in. I'm gonna break your kneecaps. You get me? Craig sighs quietly when the outsider shakes his head erratically. Why doesn't he just get that this is the best option for him? Just making it harder for himself, he is. Red Hood tisks, shaking his head like he really hates to do this. He pulls out the small crowbar strapped to his thigh. No, wait! The red crowbar halts in the air. Creeves is trembling like a leaf, and when he gulps it sounds painful. But he finally stutters out an intelligible string of words. Scarecrow, he's trying to... He swallows heavily, eyes rimming red. Tarnish your rep, yours specifically, 'cause you're getting too much fear from even Scarecrow's own goons. None want to gas kids for his experiments. He's not happy with your... Austin finishes, miserable, screwing his eyes up, readying himself for a blow that doesn't come. No one says a word. They just watch the Red Hood's still figure. Get out of here, Red Hood grunts. As soon as Creeves is free from being pinned, and the gun is back into its holster, the pathetic man is onto his feet and edging towards Craig and John. The goon is blocking the exit. Craig lets him go, but only after looking for the slight nod of approval from the boss. He glares at Creeves as he passes. Bloody coward. Red Hood claps, startling everyone. Come on, people, let's go, we've got drugs to pack, let's hit it. A van, gray with the faux plumbing service stickers painted on the sides, pulls up at the mouth, just in time for the driver, Fred, to see Creeves run like a bat out of hell. What was that all about? Questions Fred, bewildered as he takes in the scene. You don't want to know, sighs Craig. They get to work loading the van up with the drugs. I hope you have a good day at work, Daddy. Craig falters in drinking his evening coffee, trying not to choke at the too hot coffee going the wrong way down his throat. He manages to smile to his daughter. Thanks, Gracie. You be good for Miss Carmen, you hear me? I don't want no calls of your horse hooving. The 7-year-old giggles, swinging Hannah's hand. Hannah absent-mindedly pats the messy curls of brown before tugging her to the door. See, Uncle Craig, the girl calls out as she leaves. A thought strikes Craig, and he hurries to get up, cursing as he spills some of his drink. Now, just because I'm trusting you to be good at Devons, doesn't mean I'm trusting him. I expect updates. Hourly. Yeah. The door swings shut, leaving him alone in their shoddy apartment. Heaving a great sigh, Craig sits back down into his chair. He uses his shirt best to clean up the spill before deeming it a loss, and rubbing his hand down his face, he glances at the clock. 15 minutes until he needs to get going. I hope you have a good work day, Daddy. Craig groans and abandons his cuppa in the sink, grabbing his jacket. He loves his daughter, truly, the light of his life, Gracie is. But why did she have to jinx him? It's already bad enough to be called into work 3 hours early, scramble to find places his children can stay at, supervised, for reasons no one wants to tell him on the phone, but for it to now be jinxed? Fuck him to hell. With the adrenaline pumping in his blood, not even the calming sounds of fires, shouting, and the icy winds pushing against the windows and rubbish can calm him down. He makes it to work quickly, hackles raised and eyes peeled. He spots Rodney with the group around the table playing poker. Oi, Rod! When his freckled mate spots him, Craig can see the stress melt from his shoulders and his eyes warm up. Rodney gets up to dap him. Man, thank God you're here, dude. We can't take it anymore. Furrowing his brows, he looks over Rodney closer this time. There's a black eye bruising on top of his regular black eye. A split lip right next to his lip piercing, like someone's nail snagged it or something. And he stood with a funny hunch. The boys watching him didn't seem any better. Neither does Gloria, who's sporting a spectacular bald spot atop her head of a bleached hair. Jesus Christ. What? He swallows. What the fuck happened here? The boss, Rodney says hurriedly. Craig tenses. He's been dosed. Dosed? A bloke behind his friend, Craig, has no idea who he is. Must be a new hire. Nods deeply. You know that fucker from the other night? Got hit with his, hood off and, I don't know, caught him unawares? Did that new gas bomb thing? Blood drains from Craig's face, and he turns to Rodney for confirmation. His friend's looks say it all. The new fear gas going around? The boss was specifically targeted for that makes people go even more bloody scared and violent? That fear gas? A round of nods and winces. Craig grimaces. And I got called in early. For that, I suppose. You just have to sit with them, Rodney promises sympathetically. I know you got called in early, but trust. All the, violent urges and hallucinations have mostly stopped. He's mainly just sad now, he mutters to himself. So I gotta babysit a freshly traumatized, sad-kicked puppy version of the boss? Yep, sorry, bud. Craig Tucker, usually, would never blame his sweet little daughter for anything. But what can he say? She bloody jinxed him. Boss? Craig creaks the door open, half expecting the worst when he peers in. It's quiet. Much too quiet. He doesn't like it. Slowly, he shuts the door behind him, and the click tells him that he's now truly in here. He feels like a live animal brought to be eaten by the zoo's lion. I've brought tea. Jasmine with lemon? Nothing. Give it here then. Then get out. Turning to where the muffled voice had come from, he almost sags when he sees the boss collapsed onto their moth-eaten couch. The break room was not the appropriate resting place, especially to be shaking off the effects of fear gas, any type. But it is also closed off, and the easiest to get rid of any and all weapons. Still, Craig would hate to be in his boss's position. Afraid I can't hood. Craig rebukes this apologetically, but he sits in the armchair across the other man. He sets down the tea on the coffee table. Goon's orders. Redhead doesn't roll over, so all that Craig's talking to is a head of black hair. He watches the highly feared and deadly crime lord stubbornly face into the couch, breathing in what Craig knows to be musty-era cigarettes and moths and something else. Yeesh. The boss is just like his teenager at home. I've got a whole shift watching you, boss. May as well be friends during this. An audible groan is heard before Hood wiggles over, and slowly, really slowly, Dam sits up. He grabs the cup of jasmine tea and cradles it to his chest, breathing in the warmth. Craig tries to hide a smile. Then he takes a closer look at the kid's face, because that is a kid. Child. Teenager. 21, likely, which technically is an adult, except to a father. It's really not. And the smile slides away on its own. Bruises, grazes, bitten and bloody lips. Tear tracks mixing with dirt that swirled through the domino mask. A flash of pure unfiltered hatred spikes through Craig's mind before he pushes the expression. Scarecrow is going to get it. The silence doesn't. Craig wouldn't say it grows comfortable. He's a little too paranoid that even this wet rat version of his boss might go crazy and snap his leg or something. Because if he's being honest, the boss gets these little fits of rage here and there that can be unpredictable, and he's coming down from violence and hallucination-inducing gas bomb. But after a while, Craig can sink against the armchair and pull out a magazine. Red Hood just sips his tea and stares out to things that are probably there to him, but just not visible to Craig. That's fine. Whatever a guy's gotta do, he's gotta do. A whispered, "God," breaks the silence, and Craig pauses. Flitting his eyes over, he takes in the way the boss has moved and lets his neck hang over the couch as he stares up at the ceiling. It doesn't look like he said anything. Craig lets it go and returns to his got that. "I wish my family..." Red Hood's breath hitches. He locks up, shaking his head as if to derail that train of thought. Now logically, Craig knows that with every fear toxin, the loosening of tongue is a common after effect. Your mind gets so drained from the strain and pressure, and the body's been screaming for so damn long, and there's absolutely no filter going on. It would be bad. He shouldn't take advantage of this. He's not. Won't. Really, Craig would never. "Why not try reaching out to them?" he asks anyway, trying his best to sound nonchalant as he totally doesn't feel. It's like he's hyper-aware, like his arm hairs rises, and goose flesh appears on his skin, and so he doesn't take his eyes off his bust still form. Minutes pass by, and he exhales quietly, a little disappointed despite himself. But tongues get really loose after being gassed. Redhead stumbles over some syllables, getting Craig's attention so fast his neck cracks, but he doesn't care. The teaspoon taps against the cheap china teacup, and Hood doesn't look at him. "They would never accept me as I am," whispers Hood softly. The words sound like a mantra he's repeated to himself over and over and over again. "They wouldn't," he swallows roughly. Craig listens. "They wouldn't agree with my life choices," the man bunny ears, scoffing with a self-deprecating laugh. He loses his humor and sobers up pretty quickly, though. "Besides, they don't miss me," he says gruffly. "They miss the person I used to be." Craig, he couldn't imagine being like that. His two girls mean the world to him. He could never stop loving them, either of them, no matter what they might do when they're older. How can someone not even try to be with their son or their child? If Hannah got snatched away by her maternal side now, he honestly might be powerless to stop them. And so if he got the chance to be with her again, even when she's older, even when she hits the rest of her milestones, even when she dates other people and changes and grows as a person, he'd still love her. With Gracie, nothing would change the way he cares for his little girl. Even if she became, Grayson? Gracie? I wasn't even a man when I last saw them as myself. Redhead mutters so lowly, Craig almost misses it. Just a young, stupid kid. And there it is, the proof. The confirmation Craig and the others had needed. It made sense. It made so much sense that it made him sick. Hannah has a friend. The one with the too wide a jaw, too wide a pair of shoulders, too deep a voice. She's a lovely girl, Craig believes. Craig knows. Even if her parents don't care to see that. "Damn, boss," he says for lack of words. "That sucks." Quiet snoring answers him. Craig looks up from where he'd been staring at the carpet as he plots his revenge for his boss's unknown family members, and sees that the redhead is out cold. He smiles softly. "I've said it once and I'll say it again. You're more a man than most of us, boss. Even? No. Especially since you're trans." "Are you sure, though?" "Positive. Literally, what other meaning is there to wasn't even a man when I last saw them?" "Good point." "I know. So, what are we gonna do then?" "Well, I've been chatting to my niece. You know, the one that, dear God, we know. Took her, you never shut up about them. Because they're the light of my life. Fuck you guys. Get on with it, Craig. What can we do to show our support? He clearly isn't screaming it from the rooftops. Is it really our place to even say something?" "But how will he know that we love him?" Anyway, I'm thinking we could... Jason feels... Well, that's the problem. He can't feel. Sensation in his toes? Nope, can't feel that. His hips when he banged against the counter this morning? Nothing. Nada. His tongue, oddly enough? Nothing. Which, that might actually be the norm, because it weirds him out the longer he thinks about it. What he can feel, though, is literally everything he wished he couldn't. Headache, pulled shoulder, bruised ribs, Something funky is going on with his knee and he doesn't like it. But unfortunately, he's got to put his big boy pants on. He has a criminal empire to run. Jason feels dead inside when he stares at the numbers on the keypad. They seem to blur and jump around and youch his eyes. Mind-numbing, never-ending. Beep, beep, beep. Why did he have to have such thorough security again? Cursed past Jason and bat-inflicted paranoia. He tries to type his code. He really does. But then he gets the realization that no, he hasn't been making steady progress on the 14 numbers he requires. He's just been typing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all over the keypad. Not his proudest moment, Jason will admit. Finally, fucking finally, Jason gets it, and straight after the door clicks locked, he pulls off his helmet and drags a hand down his face. The visor's been messing with his head, and if he has to listen to his own mechanical breathing for 1 more minute, he'll finish the Joker's job and off himself. But first, food. Where the fuck is everybody? He mutters, scanning around. There should be at least 3 smokers and 2 guys playing darts at all times in every room. But no, empty, quiet, lights off. He pulls out his gun and keeps close to the walls. I swear to God, if I came to work on the one day I didn't have to, I'm scrapping this and restarting. Muffled whispering pricks his ears, and he cautiously turns to the kitchen. No one should be in. It's not impossible, but after the whole fear gas incident we don't talk about, thing that had happened when he got caught unawares, security improved to a level where there should not be that many whispers. It's his goons, right? Has to be. Jason tugs down his glove and presses the back of his wrist to the doorknob. No heat. Slowly, so very quietly that he's suddenly very glad he got Jacinto to oil everything the other week, he turns the knob. There's no light, and the whispers go quiet. He can hear his blood pumping in his ears. Jason flicks the lights on, back to the wall and gun pointed outwards in case of attack, only to be met with, surprise! It takes a second, and a lot of rapid breathing for him to take in the scene in front of him, and yet he still has no clue what he's saying. Craig Tucker, one of Jason's lot he actually gets along well with, is at the front of all of his followers, clearly the ringleader of the whole thing. How can Jason tell, you ask? Because the crazy man has the proudest smile he's ever seen, and is the only one decked out in blue, pink, and white, with the bold words, Red Hood's greatest supporters. The rest of his goons wave tiny trans flags, and the 2 men in the back pop confetti cannons of, you guessed it, blue, pink, and white confetti that flutters down on all of them. Speechless, Jason's eyes lower down to the table, and somehow his jaw drops even further. A giant-ass cake that, he kids you not, has red icing, capitalized because, crap, that's a lot of icing, scribbling out a truly terrible pun in chicken scratch. Why did the trans man avoid eating salads? Because he used to be a herbivore. Craig starts spewing all of this stuff that Jason only half hears, but he can see the rest of the gang nod empathetically. We support you, boss, or this changes nothing. You've got more balls than all of us. Jason just wants to know what the fuck is going on. Fumbling, he digs around his jacket pocket and pulls out his phone. He checks the date. He checks it twice. March 31st. Then, after opening his little calendar, because surely this must be a belated April Fool's kind of thing, that got into fashion while he was dead, he read the little words stating what holiday to celebrate. International Transgender Day of Visibility. What the fuck? Jason chokes out, and he swears it's the adrenaline crash or the stress that had been built up over the past few weeks. Or maybe it's just the residue of the damned fear gas, but he starts tearing up. He doesn't mean to, really. But when they start, they don't stop, because he's just been so tired, and he thought he'd have to fight, or all these idiots were dead, or, aw, boss, don't cry. Yeah, we got you, man. The next thing he knows, when he's trying to get back his composure and retain some of his dignity, he's swarmed by his henchmen. Craig, who's just as big of a giant as Jason is, in height and bulk, leads the ambush and crushes him the most in the group hug. What the fuck? His domino mask is not damp. It isn't. And that pun sucks. And just, holy shit. Jason is so confused, but at least there's cake? He ends up getting his crew to gift those trans flags and badges and banners and whatnots to shelter, doing his best to explain to both his goons and the people running the shelter that no, he is not and never has been trans. But they just assume he's trying to share the love, that he's shy and overwhelmed by their support. Weirdos, he thinks fondly. But then the bats get wind of it, and suddenly it isn't a funny little misunderstanding anymore. Alright guys, and that is the end of chapter 1 of Red Hood's Greatest Supporters by Estefi. I hope you guys like this chapter, and I'll see you next one.